Bengalis in 1905, the British Raj decided to divide Bengal into two regions, east for the Muslims and west for the Hindus. These created tension among the community members. Communal riots erupted, and in 1930s and 40s, it spread into Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Punjab. Out of this violence, Pakistan emerged as an Islamic Republic with two wings separated by 1,000 miles. Historically, Bengal was linked with its neighboring states, but the people who lived in West Pakistan, the Punjabis, Baluchis, Pathans and Sindhis, were never connected with Bengal. From the very beginning of Pakistan, there was economic disparity, as well as racial discrimination against Bengalis by lighter-skinned West Pakistanis. Within 24 years, Pakistan broke after heavy bloodbath. To look at this relationship, I got in touch with some of the prominent Pakistanis. Some of them were working in East Pakistan at that time. Others were in West Pakistan working as a journalist. I also looked at some of the videotapes produced in 1970s on Bangladesh issues. One of the person I got in touch with is Roshan Jamir, who retired as secretary of the government of Pakistan. He started his journey as a young civil servant in 1965, and in 68 he was posted in Norail Joshore and later in Khunla. Roshan Jamil settled in Washington, D.C. in the United States. We drove to his place and found him farming close to his house. He welcomed us with a good sense of humor.
In service, they taught us that all your life you will be supervisory officers. And you cannot supervise a work if you don't know that work. If you don't know that work, then you will be sitting like an idiotic Dilip Kumar, showing off your tie like Mr. Bhutto. Mr. Bhutto was very fond of showing his clothes.
In early days of Pakistan, the Urdu-speaking people from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh were in leadership. Liaquat Ali Khan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the first Governor General of Pakistan, were from India. On behalf of this group, Muhammad Ali Jinnah wanted Urdu should be the only national language of Pakistan, although only about 5% Pakistanis at that time were speaking Urdu.
Let me make it very clear to you, leave no doubt that the state language of Pakistan is going to be Urdu and no other language. And anyone who tries to mislead you is really the enemy of Pakistan.
इस मौके पर कायदे आजम ने मौक़िफ़ इख्तियार किया।
पाकिस्तान की ज़बान उर्दू होगी। कायदे आजम को खुद बोलनी नहीं आती थी उर्दू।
Tariq Khan. He worked in the Pakistani newspaper before moving into Canada in 2000.
Why he was emphasizing on Urdu language?
Which he never spoke, he never understood. He was all the time behaving like a round sahib.
Who advised Qaid Azam to make that announcement in Dhaka? That way back in 1933 or so, it was some committee of Muslim League around Malda or West Bengal, some town, Midnapur, and that committee, working committee, recommended that Urdu will be the language of Pakistan. I think the people who mattered were in the Muslim League hierarchy were all Nawabs and or Waderas or Peers and all that. And they all spoke Urdu.
Tariq Fatah graduated from University of Karachi in West Pakistan and became a reporter for Karachi Sun in 1970. He was imprisoned twice by the military regime of Pakistan. Fatah is author of several books in Canada.
To eliminate the Bengali majority in Pakistan's Constituent Assembly, it was essential that the Bangla-speaking Muslims, their voice should be cut off, and the people who migrated from India to Karachi, the capital of Pakistan, they should run the affairs. And so they were the people who used Jinnah as a puppet.
Jinnah was not a strict Muslim. He never wanted to be a strict Muslim. He never portrayed himself as a strict Muslim. He wanted to be known as a man of the world, an enlightened man, a man who enjoyed life. He was not abstemious. Oh, well, he smoked, he drank. He liked all the good things of life.
He drank alcohol, he ate pork. He never, ever visited a mosque in his entire life. First time he went to the Delhi's Jama Mosque, some Congress leaders had to tell him, Mr. Jinnah, you have to take off shoes in the mosque. And he said, why? So he was made to go to East Pakistan. He knew he was dying. And so he gave a speech in English to declare that the language of Pakistan will be Urdu. And that was the end of Pakistan, that very day.
In Pakistan's population, 32 to 33% were Punjabis. But they were controlling federal resources and federal jobs. The 55% population of East Pakistan was a direct threat to them.
Now, the elections were coming in November 58, November 58, elections were coming. And the Bengalis politicians had started making statements that, all right, when we'll come to power, we will abolish all these big zamidaras, big absentee landlords in West Pakistan. We will break one unit also. You know, all the Bhuttos, all the Chaudhrys, all the Nawabs and Jagirdars.
मशरक़ी पाकिस्तान हमारे हाथ से गया जिस दिन जनरल अयूब ने डेमोक्रेसी की पीठ में छुरा घोंप दिया.
It was to protect the landed interests in West Pakistan, all these Waderas and big zamindar, and also to perpetuate one unit, to ensure that Bengal does not twist the tail of West Pakistani power structure through their majority, that Ayub Khan brought his martial law. He abrogated the constitution, whatever it was. He brought his own constitution, basic democrats and all that. And then, under his own constitution, if the president fell ill, if the president went mad, if the president committed suicide or died, the Speaker of the Assembly would be acting president for 90 days, within which time elections will be held and a new president will be elected. But he did not respect his own constitution. He handed it over to Yahya Khan and the Speaker Abdul Wahab, who was a Bengali speaker. He did not become our president. See the badniyati, the badniyati.
In Pakistan, Bengali population was about 55%. But East Pakistan used to receive only 20% of federal resources. To industrialize the country, federal government systematically transferred resources from east to west. By the year 1970, $2.6 billion worth of resources were transferred. This resulted in a lower rate of education and an increase of child labor in East Pakistan.
पाकिस्तान बना तो मशरक़ी पाकिस्तान में 25 टेक्सटाइल मिल्स थी और मगरबी पाकिस्तान में 4 थी. 24 साल बाद 1971 में जब पाकिस्तान टूटा तो मगरबी पाकिस्तान में 350 टेक्सटाइल मिल थे और मशरक़ी पाकिस्तान में 4-5 और ज़्यादा होंगे. उनको शिकायत ये थी कि सारा ज़र मुबादला पाकिस्तान का ज़्यादातर मशरक़ी पाकिस्तान से आता है जूट बेच के, पटसन बेच कर. वो कहते थे खर्च तुम इसे यहाँ करते हो.
जूट was our main exporter.
यहाँ पे इस्लामाबाद शहर बन रहा है,
सारा इस्लामाबाद बन रहा है, यहाँ डेवलपमेंट हो रही है, हर किस्म की हो रही है, उधर नहीं हो रहा. और कहा जा रहा है जी डिफेंस ऑफ ईस्ट पाकिस्तान लाइज इन वेस्ट पाकिस्तान, मतलब इस किस्म की थियोरीज जो है ना. तो वो दूसरा हम उनको मिसट्रीट करते थे बहुत. मैं 2 साल में आ रहा हूँ 67 to 69. आई थिंक हम जनरली मिसट्रीट करते थे.
the Bengalis did not have 5 major generals in our army. They did not have 10 federal secretaries in Pakistan. I asked my friends in the Punjab, what was wrong? Why couldn't they be? Why couldn't be there generals? Oh no, they were not interested. They won't come to that. I said, make me the chairman ISSB, Inter-Services Selection Board. Make me leader of a recruiting team. I will reduce the standards of chest and the standards of height. I'll bring the better officers to Pakistan Army from Bengal. Don't you see Vietnamese defeating the tall, handsome John Wayne type of Americans in Vietnam? For 10 years, the American Army rubbed their nose in Vietnam. So what is this martial race theory and all that? Where was the martial race? It was the Bengal Army who fought the Britishers in 1857, not the Khakis.
Even in the cricket team, the only time a Bengali would be allowed to play with the Pakistan side was in the match in Dhaka, and that too as 12th man. So you would have the designated Bengali-speaking cricketer who is not allowed to bat. वो 12th man आके fielding इधर उधर भागता रहेगा ताकि किसी को आराम करने का time मिले. So you ended up with blatant racism, which was so entrenched that it is. I think it is still there.
कि बंगाली क्या है, बंगाली कद का छोटा होता है, शक्ल का काला होता है, वो किसी काबिल नहीं होता, उसे लड़ाई के काबिल नहीं होता. जब वक्त आया तो उन्होंने मार मार के बुर्गस निकाल दिया था, वो अलग बात है.
यार बंगालियों को कोई भी अच्छा नहीं समझता था.
We were posted to East Pakistan, which was part of the interwing postings. That is, officers from West Pakistan would serve there for a number of years, and similarly officers from East Pakistan would be posted here. So I was posted to Jasor, Subdivision Narail as SDO, Subdivisional Officer, and I handed over my charge of Naushera Subdivision of District Peshawar to my batchmate, Mohiuddin Khan Alamgir.
On 12th November 1970, just a few weeks before the national election, a massive tidal wave from Bay of Bengal hit the shore of Ganges Delta, causing serious damages. According to international report, about 500,000 people lost their life on that night. He was in Kumla. He was rushed into Patuakhali to serve the people there. While he was working there, he met the President of Pakistan, General Yahya Khan.
4 or 5 of us lined up on the helipad. Brigadier Durrani was there, and the President of Pakistan, Mr. Field Marshal or whatever, General, Major General, Lieutenant General Yahya Khan gets up. He had a huge silver stick in his hand. His collar was open. He looked like a vagabond, drunk. The President went and spent the night in Patuakhali, where a black dog bottle was arranged for him. So this is one more shameful incident which I suffered.
Why do you think there's so much criticism in East Pakistan, sir?
Well, how can I tell you that? Please, at this stage, I'm out to do a job of work. I'll tell you all about it when I come back from visit.
Was it a political thing, do you suppose?
I have no comment at this stage.
Are you happy?
On the very next day, within 24 hours, the international community responded with relief supply and medical help. But the Pakistan government, especially Pakistan Army posted in Jasor cantonment, took very long time to arrive to the victims of Southern Delta. That upset many Bengalis in East Pakistan.
The cyclone had struck on the night of 12th and 13th, and the Jasor Brigade had moved into Bhola on 22nd or 23rd November. I asked the brigadier, he's a friend of mine, he died, he was governor, retired as Governor of Balochistan, Sardar Abdul Rahim Durrani. I asked him, sir, why did you take so long? He said, what could I do? The Deputy Commissioner Barisal did not arrange transport for my troops. And so Maulana Bhashani had a point when he said that yes, if India had attacked from this side, the Pakistan army would still be waiting. So I heard this to my regret and shame.
Within few weeks, there was election. One person, one vote. There was the fairest election in 23 years history of Pakistan. Sheikh Mujib-ur-Rahman has a landslide victory in East Pakistan and become the majority party in the parliament. There is some videotapes produced by Pakistanis on 1970 election and its results.
पाकिस्तान में इलेक्शन हुए तो वो भी आज़ादी के 23 साल बाद, इलेक्शन के बाद मशरकी पाकिस्तान में नुमाइंदा हुकूमत ना बन सकी।
सर पहले तो मुझे बताइए ना, अगर 1970 में ये इलेक्शंस होते हैं, इंतखाबात होते हैं, मशरकी पाकिस्तान में 162 नशिस्तें हैं, 160 में मुजीबुर-रहमान साहब जीत जाते हैं, और दूसरी तरफ जो नशिस्तें हैं 138, उसमें 81 में भुट्टो साहब की पार्टी यानी कि पीपल्स पार्टी जीतती है जी। तमाम तर जमहूरी नॉर्म्स के मुताबिक इस इलेक्शन के नतीजे में पाकिस्तान का वजीर आज़म किसको बनना चाहिए था?
मुजीबुर-रहमान को।
तो अगर किसी की ये ख्वाहिश थी, अच्छा नहीं बल्कि और आसान अपने लिए करता हूं मैं, क्यों नहीं बना?
ये उनसे पूछिए जिनके पास इख्तियार था, उनसे पूछिए जिनके पास इख्तिदार था।
मैंने 1970 की पूरी इलेक्शन कैंपेन कवर की है। भुट्टो और याया खान का गठजोड़ था, जर्नैलों के साथ गठजोड़ था। भुट्टो चाहते थे कि मुल्क टूट जाए ताकि उन्हें यहाँ का इख्तिदार मिले। याया खान भी हवस इख्तिदार का शिकार था, भुट्टो भी।
इलेक्शन 70 के बाद जब शेख मुजीबुर-रहमान इमर्ज एज द लीडर ऑफ द मेजॉरिटी पार्टी इन पाकिस्तान और उसको डिक्लेयर कर दिया था कि यू आर द प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ पाकिस्तान, डेजिग्नेट याया खान ने किया था। उसके बाद इन्होंने वो जो डेट फिक्स की गई थी नेशनल असेंबली की, वो डेट अंडर मिस्टर भुट्टोज प्रेशर, वो डेट इन्होंने चेंज कर दी यूनिलैटरली विदाउट कंसल्टिंग शेख मुजीबुर-रहमान।
Tariq Khan recalls about the early March private meeting in 1971 between Yahya Khan and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, where they basically decided the fate of Bengalis in East Pakistan.
Bhutto invited Yahya Khan at his residence in Larkana, that is called as Al-Murtaza, and Yahya Khan spent 4 or 5 days over there, and after that Bhutto went to East Pakistan and had a meeting with Mujibur-Rahman. Whatever, I don't know what he did over there because there was no news.
वो है रिस्पॉन्सिबल।
कौन सरबराह था जी?
या जनरल याया खान।
जनरल याया खान
मुझे बुलाया भुट्टो साहब ने इंटरकॉन्टिनेंटल जी। अब सच बोलने का वक्त आ गया है जी। ठीक है, अब मजबूर कर रहे हैं मुझे कि मैं सच बोलूं। बोलिए। अच्छा,
तो उस वक्त
मुझे
जो
बोलने तो देना जी,
मेरे को
सच बोलने दें।
मुझे कहने लगे रात के 10 बजे, आई होप यू आर नॉट asleep। मैं सोया हुआ था, आई स्लीप अर्ली। मैंने कहा नहीं जी, मैं तो किताब पढ़ रहा हूँ। कहने लगे व्हाई डोंट यू कम टू द इंटरकॉन्टिनेंटल।
आप चले गए?
मैं गया जी। मैंने कहा किधर मिलूं? कहते बार में आओ जी। ठीक है। अच्छा, बार में मैं गया तो मुझे कहता है कि ये याया ने क्या कर दिया है। मैंने कहा जी क्या किया उसने? कहता है ये जो उसने डेट फिक्स कर दी है वो असेंबली के लिए। ठीक है जी, मुझसे पूछा नहीं है और यूनिलैटरली इसने डेट फिक्स कर दी है। ठीक है उसकी। अच्छा, इसको चेंज करो। उन्होंने कहा कि डेट चेंज करवाओ। ठीक है। मैंने कहा जी डेट कैसे चेंज? वो तो बंगाली मान गया है ये चीज है ना, यूनिलैटरली कैसे चेंज करो? यू नो व्हाट ही टोल्ड मी? मुझे कहने लगा वेरी इजी, ढाका में एक लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशन क्रिएट कराओ, उसके बाद टीयर गैस होगा, लाठी चार्ज होगा, उसके बाद फायरिंग होगी, a few people will be killed, you see, and date will be changed.
Mr. Bhutto, who had a majority only in Punjab, did not have a majority of seats in Sindh. He did not have a majority in NWFP, and he didn't have a majority in Balochistan. It was Punjab's vote, the Urdu-speaking elite, and the generals who said, with Mr. Bhutto in front, and the word they used was either hum udhar tum. Long before any point was made about breakup of Pakistan, it was Mr. Bhutto who said that we are in power here and you are over there. End of story. And that is where the day the National Assembly had to meet, Mr. Bhutto said that anybody who went to Dhaka, I will break his legs. मैं उसकी टांगे तोड़ दूंगा उधर जाएगा. Now, Mr. Wali Khan went there, Mufti Mahmood went there, members of the Council Muslim League, people have forgotten, they were there. The people who worked hand in hand with the military and Mr. Bhutto was the Jamaat-e-Islami that had 4 members of parliament, only 4 members throughout Pakistan. They were the ones hatching a conspiracy.
चुनाचे हिज़्ब इख्तलाफ में बैठने के बजाय भुट्टो ने मुल्क के दोनों धड़ों के लिए अलहदा-अलहदा वज़ीर आज़म की तजवीज़ पेश की और उधर तुम इधर हम का बयान देकर मुत्तहिदा पाकिस्तान की ताबूत में आखिरी कील भी गाड़ दी।
এহিয়া খান সাহেব প্রেসিডেন্ট হিসাবে অ্যাসেম্বলি ডেকেছিলেন, আমি বললাম যে আমি যাব, ভুট্টো সাহেব বললেন তিনি যাবেন না। 35 জন সদস্য পশ্চিম পাকিস্তানের থেকে এখানে আসলেন, তারপরে হঠাৎ বন্দুকে দেওয়া হলো, দোল দেওয়া হলো।
It was just a facade, not arrested Sheikh Mujib. They would have fulfilled their promise that Mujib shall be the Prime Minister of Pakistan.
Sheikh Mujib-ur-Rahman, the Bengalis took to the streets. The situation became so critical that President Yahya himself flew here to Dhaka to meet personally with the Sheikh. The meetings were so private that no member of the press has yet seen or photographed the 2 men together. Finally, the 3rd protagonist was summoned from Karachi. Ali Bhutto arrived in Dhaka surrounded by machine gun-toting bodyguards. The hotel where he stayed became an armed camp, cordoned off by the army. The precautions were necessary. In a competition for the most hated man in East Pakistan, Ali Bhutto would win in a walk. Within 24 hours of Bhutto's arrival in Dhaka, President Yahya postponed the National Assembly yet again, this time indefinitely.
Tariq Khan was a journalist in 1970 in Karachi, West Pakistan.
The office was located very close to railway line, which was going to Karachi Port Trust, Karachi Port, and I received information that the Pakistani soldiers are being transported in through the train up to Karachi Port, and from there by ship to East Pakistan. So I went to the railway line, and I was standing there, and the train was moving very slowly, full of soldiers, guns, and other equipment, and soldiers were in thousands of soldiers were being transported. So at that time, one of my fellow journalists was standing with me. I said to him, "Look at them. These soldiers are like Qurbani ka bakra. They will never return from East Pakistan." And I wonder if a person like me, a non-military person, can judge this thing, that they are Qurbani ka bakra, they are going to East Pakistan, they will never come back. How our generals, our army chiefs, they couldn't realize this thing, that what the hell they are doing.
Lieutenant General Tika Khan, a Punjabi military officer in the Pakistan Army, who was known for his ruthlessness in attacking minority community members in West Pakistan. He gained absolute power in East Pakistan as a governor, as well as the military administrator.
Bangladesh was bought with blood. March 1971, the year of the killing begins.
Military action में secretary information was not involved, you see. मुझे रात को Associated Press का वहाँ correspondent था, उसने मुझे बताया कि वो the fun has started. This was done by the ISPR. Again, we were not consulted. हमारा मुंह काला हो गया, हमारे खिलाफ बड़ी publicity जो थी, the international public opinion हमारे खिलाफ हो गया.
Pakistani soldiers targeted Bengalis serving in East Pakistan Police, East Pakistan Rifles, and Armed Force. They selectively killed elected MPs belonging to Awami League Party, party supporters, and university and college students. Soon this operation spread across East Pakistan.
बांग्लादेश में सबसे ज़्यादा जो ज़्यादती की है
वो जनरल टिक्का खाने की है, सारा मैसेकर तो उसी ने किया है।
तो वहां पे लोगों बंगालियों की लाशें पड़ी थी, गिद्धों को मैंने अपनी आंखों से देखा, उनके पेटों से आंतें खींच के खाते हुए, आज भी शर्म से उसको बयान नहीं किया जा सकता।
These women were killed after they had been raped by Pakistani soldiers. When their father tried to prevent the rape, he was bayoneted to death. East Bengal becomes a giant graveyard.
The ruthlessness that was shown to Bangla nationalist students or left-wing students was the essential belief in the mind of the Urdu-speaking Indian Pakistani Muslim. Contempt for the Bengali was that he is basically a Hindu who just happens to be a Muslim. If the Bengali was a Muslim, then why would he use the language, the script of the Hindu? This is from the West Pakistan's mind. And so the territory is ours, the mullahs are ours, but the ordinary people are Indian agents, not even Indian agents, Hindus, and they should be eliminated. Mr. Bhutto flew back from Dhaka, landed in Karachi, and his words were, "Thank God Pakistan has been saved." People call this man brilliant and articulate. He was a fascist. He was a dictator.
But when he returned, I was at the Karachi airport. He landed there. His political leaders or People's Party political leaders were there. Ghulam Mustafa Khar was there. Abdul Sattar Pirzada was there. Mumtaz Bhutto was there. And Bhutto came out and addressed to the newspaper people like me. We were gathered over there. And he said, "It's a God help that East Pakistan has been saved." We were baffled. We never knew that what he's talking about, how the East Pakistan has been saved, because the military operation has started or was going to start. This much we knew because the armed Pakistan army was being sent through Karachi airport, from Karachi airport to East Pakistan, and we were fully aware that something very bad is going to happen.
On those days, Tariq Fatah was a student in Karachi University in West Pakistan.
I was there on March 25th when in the Karachi University hostel, when people were celebrating. Punjabis were dancing around that we screwed them. I remember the Horkrao election. It was sarcastic. Let's see your democracy. Correct. We have the army, you have the votes. Who will win? This was the attitude. And there were a lot of Awami League and EPSU supporters, National Army Party from Professor Muzaffar Group. There were students who were there, who were my close friends. So I saw the tragedy and the triumph in the same hostel sections.
After military operations, Bengalis in Pakistan army and police revolted. Many students and villagers joined them for military training. Many more crossed the border to India for organized training. Soon they returned to East Pakistan with the light weapons to fight Pakistani soldiers. Roshan Jameel remembers several killings that he witnessed in East Pakistan in 1971.
I was staying in Jessore Brigade Mess when army action took place. When all of a sudden the batman, the orderly, brought my tea, morning bed tea, and he said, "Sir, don't get out." The 2nd East Bengal Regiment. In Jessore Brigade, there were 3 regiments. One was EB, the other was FF, The other was Baluch regiment. One FF was commanded by Colonel Shams. The Baluch regiment was commanded by a Christian officer, Sialkot, I remember because he was a very nice person, Colonel Dean. And the EB was commanded by a Bengali officer, Colonel Jalil. I remember all of them were my friends. So Jalil's platoon took away their first line ammunition and arms, and they killed those officers who were taking breakfast, shot them, and then ran away to Indian border, Benapol town. They ran away. Then a relief column was sent, which was ambushed, and a Captain Coker who was leading the relief column, he was also killed. This was one massacre which I saw. Then there were so many civilians killed, deputy commissioners, SPs, incidents of merciless killing of Bengalis. I told you about Himayat's killing, the DC Komila, and the entire Bengali officers in district town of Komila were hauled up. They were locked up in a squash court, and from the gallery of the squash court, from the spectators' gallery, they were all machine gunned. At the end of the airstrip at Komila airport, there a mass grave had been dug and all the bodies dumped there.
No news of Pakistani military operation or the resistance by the Bengalis were coming out from East Pakistan.
Information Secretary General Sher Ali, he was controlling the affairs and he was all the time propagating Nazariya Pakistan, Do Qawmi Nazariya, and treating East Pakistan, talking about East Pakistan, that they are traitors. And he was blocking the news, each kind of news coming from East Pakistan. So West Pakistani people were completely unaware. The media in West Pakistan was not at all giving any coverage, and especially there was no radio link even between East Pakistan and West Pakistan. And people in West Pakistan, common people in West Pakistan, they were depending on BBC radio.
मकामी जर्नलिस्टों, मकामी अखबारात में जो खबरें छपती थी वो तो सेंसर छपती थी, यानी मकामी रेडियो से जो खबरें, ढाका रेडियो से भी मैं उस जमाने में खबरें पढ़ता था, उससे वो सब की सब सेंसर्ड होती थी, और वो एक साहब आते थे और वो उसको वो करते थे, इंडोर्स करते थे। तो नतीजा ये था कि वहां से जो खबरें इमर्ज करती थी, निकलती थी, वो तो सब की सब सेंसर्ड, और वो खबरें होती थी जो गवर्नमेंट बनाती थी। हिंदुस्तानी अफवाज जो दाखिल हो गई, उससे एक दिन पहले तक पाकिस्तान रेडियो ये कह रहा था कि हम मुकाबला कर रहे हैं। जब हम वापस आए, अब जहां हम ठहरे हुए थे, तो वहां हमारे एक दोस्त, वो भी सहाफी थे, नौशाद नूरी, वो आए, उन्होंने कहा भाई वो तो हिंदुस्तानी फौजें मेन रोड पर चल रही हैं, यानी उनकी गाड़ियां चल रही हैं, वो आ गए। यानी उस वक्त तक हमें ये नहीं मालूम था कि हमारे हालात क्या हैं और हम किस सूरत हाल से दो चार। तो जब ये मालूम हुआ कि साहब अब तक पाकिस्तान रेडियो जो है वो हमें धोखा दे रहा था या ऐसी खबरें बता रहा था जो खबरें कम, प्रोपेगेंडा ज्यादा था, तो आप यकीन माने कि हमारे पैरों के नीचे से जमीन निकल गई।
वो सुनने वाले क्या सोच रहे थे जो हर शाम जानने की लगन दिल में लिए रेडियो सेट्स कानों से लगाए फिरते थे।
इस तरह जो कहता रहा, और तब भी पाकिस्तान का रेडियो उस वक्त ही झूठ बोलता रहा कि जनाब वो आज हमने तटाका की बंदरगाह को खाली करा लिया, नवा खाली करा ली, ढाका पे हमारा पूरा कब्जा, ये सब बातें करते रहे, लेकिन इसमें हकीकत नहीं। हकीकत जो बीबीसी बता रहा था कि ये सब कुछ, वो कह रहा था कि यहाँ पाकिस्तानी फौज पसपा हो रही है, नवाखाली में, चटाकांग में, ढाका, हर जगह पथपा और ये अपनी वाह 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 कर।
जनरल न्याजी जो अप्रैल 1971 में जब उनको पोस्ट किया गया ढाका में, तो वो बहुत बड़ी बड़ी बातें किया करते थे, लेकिन जैसे ही दिसंबर 1971 में जंग शुरू हुई तो फिर वो कभी रोते थे, कभी हिचकियां लेके आंसू बहाते थे, पता नहीं क्या कुछ करते थे। लेकिन मेजर जनरल खादम हुसैन राजा जो कि अप्रैल 1971 में उन्होंने चार्ज दिया था जनरल न्याजी को, वो अपनी किताब अ स्ट्रेंजर इन माय ओन कंट्री, ये किताब है जी, अ स्ट्रेंजर इन माय ओन कंट्री, जनरल राजा की। इस किताब में इन्होंने लिखा है कि जब जनरल न्याजी आए वहां पे तो एक दिन मैं इस किताब के जो एग्जैक्ट अल्फाज हैं वो एग्जैक्ट अल्फाज पढ़ना नहीं चाहता क्योंकि शायद बहुत से लोगों की तबीयत पे ग्रां गुजरेंगे। बस पेज 98 पे मैं कुछ अल्फाज सेंसर करके ये पढ़ देता हूं कि जनरल न्याजी ने पाकिस्तानी फौज के अफसरान को ये कहा, मैं इस कौम की नस्ल बदल दूंगा, ये मुझे क्या समझते हैं। कुछ अल्फाज मैंने नहीं पढ़े। और जनरल राजा साहब ने अपनी किताब में लिखा है कि जब ये बात की जनरल न्याजी ने बहुत से फौजी अफसरान के सामने, तो वहां पर एक बंगाली अफसर था, उसका नाम था मेजर मुश्ताक, वो भी मौजूद था। तो उसको ये बात बहुत बुरी लगी कि ये मेरा कमांडर जो है ये मेरे सामने ही कह रहा है कि मैं इस कौम की नस्ल बदल दूंगा। तो मेजर मुश्ताक साहब बाथरूम में गए और उन्होंने अपने सर में गोली मार ली। और ये जनरल राजा साहब ने लिखा है कि वो जो मेजर मुश्ताक था वो बहुत अच्छा अफसर था, बड़ा पैट्रियट, बड़ा बहादुर अफसर था, लेकिन वो जनरल न्याजी के अल्फाज का निशाना बन गया। और ब्रिगेडियर सदीक सालिक साहब जो हैं उन्होंने इस किताब में लिखा है कि 10 अप्रैल 1971 को खादम हुसैन राजा ने फौज की कमान जब जनरल न्याजी के सुपुर्द की, तो कमान लेने के बाद जनरल अमीर अब्दुल्ला खान न्याजी ने मेजर जनरल खादम हुसैन राजा से कहा कि तुमने फौज की कमान तो मुझे दे दी है, अपनी दाश्ताओं की कमान मुझे कब दोगे। जी हाँ, ये लिखा है सदीक सालिक साहब ने।
Our house was in the same road where General Niazi's house was. It was walking distance, and his PS and ADC, they all used to visit our house as told by my dad, and they discussed a lot of things, including his dubious character. He was a womanizer, he was alcoholic, and a lot of times he was not in his senses when the whole wing was under war, and a lot of time he would not even give any administrative order because he could not.
आप समझते हैं कि हमारे मुसलमान सिपाहियों ने वाकई बांग्लादेशी औरतों का मैसिव रेप किया?
समझता नहीं, मुझे पता है कि
मैसिव रेप किया। It's unbelievable.
मतलब देखे ना, शेख मुजीब बंगालियों का तो हीरो था।
हाँ, नहीं तो वो हीरो, मैं तो मेरा तो खुद हीरो है। उसने इनकी जान, उनसे हम
ये है कि रेप तो हुए हैं,
कितनी जाती है,
लाखों लोगों के रेप हुए हैं, लाखों औरतें जो लड़कियां प्रेग्नेंट हुई हैं, लाखों लोग मारे।
नहीं तो इनको शर्म नहीं आती पाकिस्तानियों को?
आज तक इन्होंने माफी नहीं मांगी।
About 70 have had abortions, and those who have had their babies plan to give them away. Most of the girls here were held prisoner by the Pakistani troops in the army barracks. For weeks, each day and each night, they were forced to submit to whatever the soldiers demanded. This is Rushanara, 14 years old and 7 months pregnant. She was abducted from her home in Dhaka and taken to the army barracks where she remained for 3 months. She says there were nights when as many as 30 soldiers forced themselves on her.
Have raped enough women in Bengal, have enough children to turn the entire country into a different race. So it was racial and Islamic superiority which comes in other parts of the world as well.
फॉल ऑफ ढाका के ऊपर एक कमीशन बनाया गया, महमूद-उर-रहमान कमीशन। कमीशन तो इस पाकिस्तान में आज भी बन रहे हैं, पहले भी बनते रहे। उस कमीशन का रिजल्ट कभी सामने नहीं आया।
अगर फौज जिम्मेदार थी तो महमूद-उर-रहमान कमीशन रिपोर्ट को अवाम के सामने क्यों ना पेश किया गया?
After a few years, it was released in an Indian newspaper, and that's why everybody came to know about who were responsible. Yahya Khan in that report, not only Yahya Khan, General Abdul Hamid, General Sher Ali Khan, General Niazi, everybody was recommended that they should be tried as a traitors.
पाकिस्तान की तारीख का सबसे बड़ा कमीशन है, 3 चीफ जस्टिसों पर मुश्तमिल। वो कहते हैं याह्या खान जो है वो बेहद अयाशी की जिंदगी गुजारते थे और अपना ज्यादातर वक्त शराब नोशी और ख्वातीन के साथ सर्व करते थे।
ये कमिश्नर महमूद-उर-रहमान कमिश्नर रिपोर्ट में
जंग के नाजुक दिनों में ये वो है, कमीशन कह रहा है, फाइंडिंग है, इल्जाम नहीं है, इल्जाम नहीं है, ये फाइंडिंग है।
ठीक है।
जंग के नाजुक दिनों में जनरल ने अपना सदारती दफ्तर में जाना बंद कर दिया था, जाते ही नहीं थे वहां, और जनरल हेडक्वार्टर जो था GHQ वहां भी 2 या 3 दफा गए ऑपरेशन रूम में। बाकी सारा वक्त जो है वो वही शराब और शबाब।
Infamous woman used to visit President House. One film actor, Tarana, was a regular visitor. Noor Jahan was a regular visitor. General Rani, the supplier, was a regular visitor. It became a joke that whenever Tarana used to go and spend night with President Yahya Khan, soldiers कहा करते थे कि अंदर न जाओ, कौमी तराना बज रहा है।
कभी आप तसव्वुर कर सकते हैं कि कोई ऐसा शख्स मुमलकत का सरबरा बन जाए और जनरल बन जाए, कमांडर इन चीफ, और अयूब खान ने उसको नॉमिनेट किया हो?
Pakistan Army was killing civilians. They targeted political leaders and members of Hindu families. They systematically raped their women and burned their houses. To avoid death, many people crossed the border to India. By November 1971, there were about 10 million refugees in India from East Pakistan. But the President of Pakistan, General Yahya Khan, was in complete denial.
And these people who you saw were not refugees from East Pakistan. I can arrange a lot of influx of refugees into Pakistan if you like to come with me to East Pakistan. I'll show you how they're coming from India. But they're not coming in, nor are my refugees going back to India.
याह्या खान को मैंने कहा जी ढाका फॉल हो गया है, इसका मतलब ये तो नहीं है ना जी कि अब पाकिस्तान लड़ाई खत्म हो गई है, फिर तो ये तो ऑल आउट वॉर है। ढाका इज अ पार्ट ऑफ माय कंट्री, ईस्ट पाकिस्तान इज हाफ माय कंट्री, यू नो। ये कैसे हो सकता है जी? पता है मुझे क्या जवाब मिला जी? दिस इज इन सपोर्ट ऑफ व्हाट यू आर सेइंग जी। मुझे याह्या खान, छोड़ो यार, एक सारे काले बंगालियों की खातिर हम वेस्ट पाकिस्तान को खतरे में डाल दें।
There's no literature available. I have been searching, I have not found. How did he spend the last 2 or 3 years of life? You know, what did he do? What did he think? Did he write anything? Because he must have died with a very guilty and heavy heart.
कि जब दिसंबर में हालात ख़राब हुए, जंग शुरू हो गई, तो 7 दिसंबर 1971 को जो मशरक़ी पाकिस्तान के गवर्नर थे, गवर्नर मालिक साहब, उन्होंने जनरल नियाजी को गवर्नर हाउस में बुलाया और उनसे पूछा कि जनरल साहब ये बताइए कि मुहाज की क्या खबरें हैं। तो इस किताब में ब्रिगेडियर सदीक सालिक साहब लिखते हैं कि वहां पर मेजर जनरल राव फरमान अली भी मौजूद थे और उनकी मौजूदगी में जब गवर्नर ने पूछा कि नियाजी साहब बताइए मुहाज की क्या खबरें हैं, तो नियाजी साहब रोने लगे। ब्रिगेडियर सदीक सालिक साहब ने भी अपनी इस किताब में ये बात वाज़ेह तौर पे लिखी है कि GHQ ने जनरल नियाजी को सरेंडर के लिए नहीं कहा था, बल्कि GHQ ने सीज फायर के लिए कहा था, लेकिन जनरल नियाजी ने सरेंडर कर दिया।
It was the Brahman Broadcasting Corporation, BBC. I can tell you one thing, man. I'm the man I'll take the time over my body. You'll see my dead body are alive.
As the Indians step up their pressure, the panic increases, and the hotel welcomes more refugees.
The Indian Army is in Bangladesh. Your air force has been destroyed. You are surrounded on all sides. And if you don't surrender, you will be killed unmercifully.
Their first target is the radio station just down the road from the hotel. Some of them want to shoot their way in, despite the fact that there's no resistance. But for the moment, a semblance of Mukti Bahini law and order prevails. Unofficially, the birth of the new nation is proclaimed when the Bangladesh flag is raised over the radio station. Is there any question of a surrender yet, do you know? Would you know?
No, why no surrenders?
Yeah. There's no question of it. You
question
know
of
for sure, no question.
No question of any surrender.
That what General Niazi has been saying still stands. You fight to the last man.
He means it.
And you mean it with him, or
of course,
all of you behind him?
Everyone.
गवर्नर साहब से अब्दुल मुत्तलिब मालिक साहब से वो कह रहे हैं कि हम 65 से भी ज़्यादा शिकस्त देंगे, उनको इबरतनाक शिकस्त देंगे। गवर्नर साहब को याद था, लेकिन जब बमबारी हुई जनाब गवर्नर हाउस पर 14 दिसंबर को, तो सबसे पहले गवर्नर साहब और उनकी कैबिनेट के लोग जो है ना जाके इंटरकॉन में पनाहगज़ीन हुए, क्योंकि वो रेड क्रॉस का इलाका था वो। तो ये आम लोगों को सदमा भी हुआ, अफसोस भी हुआ, लेकिन जो कुछ हो रहा था हमारी आंखों के सामने उसका मनतकी नतीजा यही था।
By now, General Niazi cannot hide the humiliation he so deeply feels.
Just few days before the surrender of Pakistani soldiers in Dhaka, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was in UN Security Council on behalf of Pakistan government, where he said Pakistan army will never surrender and they will fight till the end. And then he dramatically walked out from the UN meeting right after the incident. 93,000 Pakistani soldiers surrendered in East Pakistan. And Bhutto was fully aware of the things that was taking place in Eastern Front. But in a press interview, he denied the breaking down of Pakistan.
Do you still regard Pakistan as one country, Mr. Bhutto?
Of course it is one country.
Is that realistic?
Absolutely realistic. What are realities? Temporary phenomena are not realities. Realities are studied in history. And historically, the concept of Pakistan, the ideal of Pakistan, cannot perish like this.
You still don't recognize that what happened in East Pakistan is an expression of popular feeling, that they really do want to be separate?
No, they wanted maximum autonomy. And the line between maximum autonomy and secession can be a thin one, or it could be made to appear to be a thin one.
How would you react to any governments that recognized the new Bangladesh government?
A hostile act.
93,000 लोग हमारे गिरफ्तार हुए, किसी एक का भी वहां पे ट्रायल नहीं हुआ, इसलिए कि हम अग्रेसर नहीं थे। अगर हम अग्रेसर होते ना तो वॉर क्राइम में लोग ट्राई हो जाते हैं।
India betrayed Bangladesh. India has always suffered from an inferiority complex of anyone who comes from the northwestern areas of Hindustan. So the traditional places where people have invaded India. So when Mr. Bhutto and his lovely daughter came, the Indian establishment was so charmed by the grace of Benazir Bhutto and by Zulfikar Bhutto's, the way he plays billiards. The entire Indian establishment was like gooey gum, you know. Chikni mitti ki tarah. You could mold them. And he got war criminals back from Bangladesh into Pakistan's hand and sent them into Balochistan to start killing the Baloch.
So the trial should have been happened.
The trial? Bangladesh should have tried these people. Hasina's doing it now. In Urdu we say, der aaye lekin durust aaye. But this should have happened in 71.
कि जब मशरकी पाकिस्तान टूटा तो कौन पाकिस्तान का हुक्मरान था? फौजी टोला। उसने पाकिस्तान तोड़ा। क्या किसी ने आज तक कौम से माफी मांगी? क्या किसी ने कहा कि जनाब हम कौम से शर्मिंदा हैं? किसी ने कहा कि जनाब हमने मशरकी पाकिस्तान के अवाम का मैंडेट तस्लीम नहीं किया और अपनी मन मर्जी की है और मुल्क तोड़ दिया है? और मुल्क तोड़ने वाले देखें आप, सितम ज़रीफी ये है कि मुल्क तोड़ने वाले फौजी जर्नैल, उनकी लाशों को पाकिस्तान के झंडों में लपेट कर उनको दफनाया गया।
इलेक्शंस करवा रही है और इलेक्शन जो पार्टी जीती है उसी के खिलाफ ऑपरेशन कर देती है। तो ये हम आज इस हाउस में बैठे हम सबको समझना चाहिए कि हमने क्या गलती की तब, और उसके बाद मुसलसल बलूचिस्तान के ऑपरेशंस देख लें, ये जो कबायली इलाके में हमारी फौज फंसी है उधर देख लें। हमें जब तक हमें ये एहसास नहीं होगा कि बाकी जो हमारे पाकिस्तान के हिस्से हैं उनके ऊपर क्या गुजर रही है, मुझे खतरा है कि आगे पाकिस्तान का मुस्तकबिल क्या होगा।
होना तो ये चाहिए था कि सकूते ढाका से सबक लिया जाता, लेकिन हम बहैसियत कौम आज भी उसी तारीख को दोहरा रहे हैं। बलूचिस्तान, सिंध और कबायली इलाकों में सर उठाने वाली कौम परस्त तहरीकें जज्बा हुब्बुल वतनी और यकजहती की कमी की निशानदही करती हैं।
Unfortunately, Pakistan still tries military solution to the political problems. This creates mistrust and bloodshed. Remembering Sheikh Mujib-ur-Rahman, one of the most charismatic Bengali leader who was popularly known as Bangabandhu. He was often compared with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, another charismatic Bengali leader of British time. He was also popular among West Pakistanis. Tariq Fatah remembers Bangabandhu's visit to West Pakistan in 1969 and 70.
But he did speak one last time in Karachi in the 70 elections, and there were at least 2 million people in Karachi, but KGA ground, I think it was KGA ground. I forget the name of.
He spoke in Bengali?
He spoke in Bangla, Urdu, English. I was very colorful speaker. He could speak for hours and hours. But I saw, Pashtuns from National Army Party, and those red flag flying. It was a very high point in Pakistan's existence. We felt that after 1970, the country will emerge as a secular democracy with friendship with India and China and Iran. Like nothing could go wrong to Pakistan if there was sensible leadership. If Sheikh Mujib was the prime minister, India was a friend. Iran was a friend. China was a friend. The army would go down. The zamindari would end. We would have been a paradise on earth. They turned it into hell in the name of Islam. They turned paradise